comedian Walter Masterson gets almost instantly attacked by Zionist protesters for talking about Star Wars. The media won't show you this because they're too busy trying to portray the pro-Palestinian protesters as violent.
Nothing wrong.
I love Walter. Walter is the GOAT.
Up Alderaan. The liberal media is not going to tell you that. The Rebel Alliance kidnaps children and they indoctrinate them.
This is great because it's like, yeah, it's boomer humor, but like that's the target audience that needs to hear it the most.
We're going to talk about Star Wars. Wait, is there a Star Wars area? Wait, there's a special area to talk about Star Wars. The Mandalorian uses Baby Yoda as a human shield.
That's so
What
dumb.
are you doing? Some people just don't want to talk about Star Wars. I was talking about Star Wars. You're Fox News?
I'm going to be on Fox tomorrow.
Okay, yeah. So, So the Mandalorian was using Baby Yoda as a human shield. The liberal media doesn't talk about how Alderaan was being used as a base for the Rebel Alliance. Say what you want about the Sith Lord, but I mean, he dealt with the Trade Federation and that whole blockade of Naboo.
Okay, and for those who are a little bit less familiar with Star Wars, could you draw the analogy a little bit?
You want to start with episode 1. You see
how does that connect to this issue or why you're out here?
What issue? What's going on here? What is this? Oh, Israel? Oh, huh. Hard to say, really. Thank you.
The parallels he's speaking on are a bit uncanny. No, it's not uncanny at all. Guys, George Lucas literally based Star Wars off the Viet Cong. He said America was the bad guys and the rebels were the Vietnamese. That literally is the whole basis for Star Wars. So that's why the parallels are uncanny. Here.
Something very interesting with Star Wars, if you think about it. The good guys are the rebels. I think we call those guys terrorists today. We call them Mujahideen, we call them Al-Qaeda.
When I did it, they were Viet Cong.
Exactly. So were you thinking of that at the time?
Yes.
It's like not even a question. Like he's like, yeah, no, I did it off of the Viet Cong. Remember, Viet Cong, not even like the rest of the Northern Vietnamese Liberation Front, like straight up, the most like communist, the most rugged, the ones that are still by Americans used, the Al-Qassam brigades of Vietnam. And you believe him? Why wouldn't I believe him? Of course he did it off of that. It's the whole plot of the movie. He created it. Why would he? First of all, you think he has a reason to lie? Now, the problem with this story, of course, is that Mark Hamill's a Zionist, but also it's so funny to look at this and be like, nah, he's lying actually. Like why would he lie in the direction that is critical of America? And not only that, but also the reason why it's important to understand is because a lot of these idiots consume this media and like literally refuse to reckon with the reality. It's easy to forget how demonized the Viet Cong were by the Western media and political class. Guys, saying Viet Cong is important here. For the record, many of you probably don't know this, but during the Vietnam War, the American media, specifically the New York Times, but all of the mainstream media, said the exact same things about the Viet Cong, which is of course the American terminology for it. They said it about a lot of the Vietnamese resistance, almost all of it, but specifically the Viet Cong. Now, for the record, does this mean that like some of their anti-imperialist actions were not super fucking violent? Of course they were. But guess what? They were in the right side of history. They were on the right side of history and they were doing whatever they could. That's why I don't think you hear a lot of people going, do you condemn the Vietnamese Liberation Front any longer? Because when the dust settles and the monsters of imperialism leave, tucking their tails and cowering, the rest of the world will recognize the reality. And those who are on the wrong side of history will have to lie about their past behavior. That's how it works, always and forever. It's why I say history will vindicate us. The Divorcelli fans of the day would be promoting this stuff nonstop. Look, the South Vietnamese are being killed in Viet Cong terror attacks. They're terrorists. They killed 111 civilians. How could you, in any way, shape, or form, sympathize with them? So yeah, there you go, guys. Remember, anyone with even a shred of dignity now understands that obviously the Viet Cong were on the right side of history. They were doing what is just. They were defending their nation. They were fighting for emancipation from a rabid, violent imperialist force that killed an infinite larger number of civilians in South Vietnam than the Viet Cong ever could have killed, even if they wanted to. But of course, that was violence conducted by the American state, and therefore, at the time, that was seen as perfectly valid, and then later dismissed down the line. That's why you don't hear about it as much. The military's official policy was to make atrocity propaganda as a part of its PSYOP campaign against the Viet Cong. This included graphic gore of dead babies and decapitated bodies, which they noted should be used sparingly for maximum effect. Let's look at this. Oh, there's more. There's more. William F. Buckley is one of the absolute worst historical monsters of American fascist propaganda and fascist apologia.
Perhaps certain aspects of the quarrel in Vietnam that touch especially on your thesis and your concern and the whole nature of it. And that is the suspicion that some people have of a double standard of selective indignation. For instance, you refer to the heroic Vietnamese resistance to American power.
I think it's absolutely heroic.
Yeah, sure.
Isn't that crazy? You're about to hear, damn near, I'm letting you know, you're about to hear Noam Chomsky be on the right side of history, but pay close attention to everything this hamster of a man has to say, this wormy little dip.
Amazing.
Now, I understand I understand enough about language to understand the use of heroism in that way.
If you notice, there are a few lines below, I say, or above, I say something about quite apart from any question of politics.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Right. Now, suppose I were
This is, by the way, the only time I've ever seen Noam Chomsky be young.
to write about the heroic resistance of the Nazis to the Liberation Army, for instance, their use of torture, the use of mass reprisals.
I don't consider that heroic.
Well,
at
why
all.
is that heroic? I mean, that means
If he was saying the Nazis are heroic, by the way, Noam is Jewish. William F. Buckley is a literal Nazi. So it's kind of interesting that he is telling a dude who is Jewish as an actual Nazi, oh, your defense of the Viet Cong is similar to defending the Nazis, as a matter of fact. Not a literal Nazi, but he was openly white supremacist. Okay, dude, come on. That's a distinction without that significant of a difference. Jesus Christ. It's pretty funny. I've actually shown many times over the Gore Vidal, the famous Gore Vidal, William F. Buckley back and forth debates, and everybody always like hails that as like the peak of political commentary and political discourse. And it's pretty funny because it literally devolves into Gore Vidal calling him a crypto-fascist and William F. Buckley calling Gore Vidal a queer, a homosexual. So like not much has changed. You know what I mean?
means that they were doing everything they possibly could.
No, I don't think that heroism doesn't. Well, then I think we do disagree on the use of language. I don't think that reprisals against
we do know that
innocent
Viet Cong
population
have used fire weapons to destroy whole villages, children, that they have disemboweled mayors and so on.
Dude, look at that. Look at that. Straight up. Identical. Oh, the Nazis. You're defending the Nazis. If you're defending the Viet Cong saying they're heroic, you're defending the Nazis. Look at what the Viet Cong did. Why are there so many right-wing weirdos that ruin that side part hairstyle for the rest of us? Well, maybe you shouldn't have the hairstyle then.
And hung them up and all that kind of
Well,
stuff.
let's.
Now, this is heroic, I understand.
No, that is not.
Oh.
That's depraved.
That's depraved.
in my opinion. Yeah.
So
But that's very, very marginal in the Viet Cong.
Well, why is it marginal?
In fact, it's marginal. That's a question of fact. And
It's
this
a
is
fact,
what
yeah.
we argue, Now, the question, in fact, you know, this. It's quite, you know, I think there's perfect unanimity about this in the people who've studied it. For example, if you look at someone like, say, Douglas Pike, you know, American Foreign Service agent, as the chief expert on the on the Viet Cong, and you read his book carefully.
Using American State Department against right-wing heads. Check. Using American State Department assessment against those who are trying to champion the cause. Check. Literally nothing has changed. Nothing has changed.
You discover that he points out that it was in response to the American military effort that the Viet Cong turned from their attempt to build mass popular support by through the organizational methods that involved giving people an actual role in organizing and controlling their own society and institutions. They turned from that to physical force in reaction to the American intervention. Well, and if you read, I have many examples of this quoted in the book from aid documents, let's say, or from pacification manuals where people point out.
By the same token, you can say that the Nazis turned to torture in France in reaction to Eisenhower's landing in Normandy.
And really wants to talk about Viet Cong terror during the period prior to the American intervention, then again, I think just about all commentators, Dennis Werner, Bernard Fall, whoever you like, has agreed that by and large, this was terror directed extremely selectively against oppressive and external village officials.
The burning of Joan of Arc was selective.
Yeah, collaborators. Yes, they violently tortured and fucked up collaborators. So does every Palestinian resistance group. They do that too. Every time they do that in the West Bank, you'll see news footage of it being like, look at how violent these Palestinians are. The ANC literally had a method called necklacing. The ANC would take black collaborators with the apartheid regime and put tires around their bodies, around their neck, and then light them on fire. I believe it was in Tulkarm that they hung some of the Palestinian collaborators, if I'm not mistaken, that were giving out positions of Palestinian resistance in the West Bank to the Israeli government. Now, that's horrible. Okay. It is. It's horrible, right? In Tulkarm, they hanged a bunch of Palestinians for collaborating with Israel. How crazy, how violent are these guys, right? Well, guess what? When all they know is violence in moments of radical resistance against a much more powerful entity, yes, people end up resisting by very violent means. But the reason why I'm bringing up the process of necklacing is obviously not to criticize the ANC. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because after learning that, what does that tell you? Do you think that the ANC is now bad? Do you think their cause was not just the abolition of the apartheid? Do you think actions such as that one were not used against them regularly with regular frequency to say the blacks are barbaric? It was counter propaganda at the time. That accent sucks. I know I can't do a South African accent. I know. This is why I say always that when the dust settles, you will not think of the atrocious acts of those who resisted against the much greater evil.
The burning of Joan of Arc was selective too.
But I think
the point is, it was intended to establish a universal point.
It was
so was the
intended
execution
to,
of Eichmann selective.
Well, but you see, there's a very big difference. I think, you see, if you want to, personally, I'm against all kinds of terror, no question. But if you want to understand the Viet Cong situation, then let's recognize a very great distinction. At least I recognize. Let's see what the political point of the terror was. See, after all, during that period, there were about 9 or 10,000.
Think about that. The conversation never changes. The methods of those who defend imperialism are the exact same. And those naysayers who are on the right side of history, who are on the side of justice and morality, like Noam is here, they get called defenders of terrorism. They get called supporters of terrorism. They are called into question anytime a violent atrocity can be propagandized. Always. And he does a phenomenal job of, in my opinion, navigating through that space without being like, yeah, dude, I don't fucking give a shit. Stop invading Vietnam. Because that's what the normal heart wants to say in that situation, and be like, yes, dude, I know they did violent shit, but like, come on, the fuck are you doing? Yeah, that's why we have to literally gas southern Vietnam. Use Agent Orange. Permanently fuck them up. Shin Bet literally has Facebook groups for each Palestinian locality in which they try to hire and recruit collaborators for financial rewards and to aggressively intimidate Palestinians from entering politics. They mostly get clowned on, but some collaborators do join in for the money, and they're often killed to found a SAB, but ultimately the fault of occupation. There's another really gross way that Shin Bet operates. They will honey trap gay Palestinians, like queer Palestinians, and then blackmail them with revenge that they shoot of the queer Palestinians. They blackmail them into collaboration. That's right. Another wonderful pro-gay Israel. They do that all the time. Don't ever listen to a single goddamn Israeli fascist about how woke and gay Israel is. They don't give a shit. It's called pinkwashing. That's all that is. To be like, listen, we're doing fascism, but we're doing it in a gay way. So please, we're the beacon of democracy. That's why so many dumb, cis, white gays were chirping about defending Israel, because they went and sucked some dick in Tel Aviv one time, and they never let it go. You not remember? After October 7, all the white gays were like, I love Israel. I love Israel. Palestinians and Hamas are haters of gay people.
According to American sources, there were maybe 9 or 10,000 village officials of one sort or another killed by the Viet Cong, largely with the support of the villages. But at the same time, recall that there were perhaps 160,000 Vietnamese, if we accept Bernard Paul's figures again, killed by the Saigon government and the Americans. This is prior to 1965. That was a very different kind of terror, both in quantity and also in its political content.
I know, but
you see, just to mention this matter of double standard, there are really three kinds of terror in Vietnam. There's Viet Cong terror, there's the Saigon government terror, and there's American terror. And if you read what I've written, I say practically nothing about either Viet Cong terror or terror carried out by the Saigon government. Now, if one wanted to talk about that, one would have to point out that the terror carried out by the Saigon government is incredibly greater in extent and has a very different political purpose, which one could discuss. But I restrict myself to discussing American terror.
On that generality, but,
well,
but I gather that you believe it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do, and we could, you know, that then does become a matter of fact, which one could discuss. Yeah, but I, as a matter of principle, almost restrict myself to the discussion of American terror. Not the terror carried out by the various sides in Vietnam, for many reasons. For one thing, because it's just qualitatively different in scale.
I could be tripping, but I thought William Buckley's son and wife outed him as gay in a biography. That would be not very shocking.
And for another thing, because I feel that we have some responsibility for it.
Here's Chomsky's thought on his appearance on William Buckley's show. Buckley was infuriating, but he said he would invite him on again. Of course, he never did, because all the depraved right-wing hacks he prefers to berate are people he can't respond to.
My sole contact with Buckley, which was of no particular significance as far as I was concerned, was that he invited me to be on a program.
Isn't it crazy that he's like, this is like 20 years ago?
Talk program that he ran called Firing Line. And yes, I was invited and was there for one program, and that was it.